Okay, now we're back. It's been about 20 to 30 minutes since I started this. And what I did first was, remember step one, I tested the paper to check it and see if it could peel in whole strips. If it didn't, and if any bits and pieces were coming off without coming out in a whole strip, I just left it. I wet it all down, and then while it was wetting, I went around and removed plates and so forth. I used this product. For me, it's stiff, and I mixed that with water, and I used a sprayer. Now, one of the things I recommend is on the floor you lay drop cloths all up against the wall you're working on. In this case, I'm working with tile on a tile floor, so I could just mop it up afterwards. It can get quite messy, but don't spray it on too heavy. Spray it on more like a mist. Now, I went around, like I said, 3 or 4 times, and probably more than that, and the paper's now pretty wet. Underneath the paper is not wet, in this case. Now you'll see, as I peel it, it's now coming off in whole strips where it didn't before. This is ideal, what I want to see happen. See? Now the backing behind the paper is still dry. In some cases, many cases, you're using vinyl wallpaper. You're trying to remove something with vinyl on it. Now, here's an issue a lot of people like to use is what's called a tiger paw. And what it does is it pokes little tiny holes through the surface of the paper, and that allows the water and the chemical to penetrate the paper to get to the backing. I don't really like to do this. I only use it in extreme cases where I can't get the outer layer of paper off. What I will do, even if it's vinyl, by wetting it down, what it'll do is it'll soften it up and make it stretchy so that you can go ahead and peel it, the outer layer, in whole sheets. Now once you have that outer layer off, then you don't need to deal with poking little holes through the paper. Now you're at the backing, and the backing will then absorb the water that you put on the paper. Now while I'm doing this, I always like to go back and keep the paper wet as I go, because I'll find that as I keep going and progressing around the room, the sheets that have been on the longest and getting wet over and over, they tend to come off the fastest and easiest. And in some cases where the wallpaper, where the chemical penetrated through the surface of the paper, if it's paper not vinyl, it actually will finally get to the backing, and the backing will come off together with it, which is great. But I don't know if you, and I know I don't, like to stay around for a few hours till that happens. But sometimes it takes a few hours to get around a room, and those vinyl sheets start to come off in complete strips. But what I'll do is I'll take off the surface like I did, and then get to the backing. And once the backing is exposed, I take out my sprayer again, and I'll wet the backing. And I'll do this as I go along, so I'll keep stripping off the outer sheets and then wetting the backing as I go. And now, by the time I get around the outer sheets are off, I'll be able to get to the first sheet of backing, and that'll be all ready to start stripping, so I can just keep moving along. So I'm going to go ahead and do that step next, and then I'll be back and show you what to do next.